Assalamu alaikum, you're watching the Haider Rifaat show and I'm your host Haider Rifaat. Today it's an absolute honor for me to be here with Reham Khan, who is one of Pakistan's finest journalists and film producer. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Haider.
I'd like to begin with your experience as a film producer. How was it like producing the film Janan?
It was, the honest answer is that it was very challenging, but yes, it's a lot of fun. For us, film production is a new thing in Pakistan, so we don't have the infrastructure needed to make a film. We don't have the industry developed enough as, say, our neighboring countries actually do. They have a lot more infrastructure in place. They have organized systems supporting the film industry, and the government supports the film industry. So actually making a film, everyone understands that it's good. It's good for other industries, related industries like tourism or fashion or even security. And in Pakistan, it's a struggle to get the government interested. Is not that easy. It's not very easy to get financial investors on board. I must say that after the success of Janan, I have had a lot more positive response. Now everyone's thinking of this as something that you would like to invest in, and that there is a profit, that there's growth in the industry. So there has been a little change, but because the industry is so young, and I say young because I think it's not a film industry revival, because the way films were made, say in Lollywood, was in a very flexible and unstructured way. So we have finally initiated a film industry with new mechanisms that are needed in place. So we have to start from scratch. I think back in the 50s and the 60s, there were some systems in place, but they do not exist anymore.
Yes, true.
So investors obviously you need to build confidence in investors that this is what you're going to do. Typically in Pakistan, when you're in the pre-production stage, producers or investors are not that keen to part with their money. Once you're in the shooting stage, they get a little bit more confident because they see the glamour of the shoot and the film actors on set, so they see something more tangible. By the time you go into post-production, when you don't really need that much money anymore, they get very excited and they start pouring the money in. So it was typically with Janan as well. I mean, initially, the bulk of the shooting was done on a shoestring budget. And I think because the creative idea was very strong, and we looked across the market and we wanted to make it feasible for viewers and wanted to make a product that would sell. But we had to make sure part of the success of Janan is because it's an original concept, so it doesn't look like another Bollywood film, or at least we've tried that. It shouldn't look like that, because Bollywood would only be interested in our product if it's original. So this is why they've been interested in our Pakistani drama, not currently what's being produced, because now we're following trends in India. But a long time ago, I mean, a lot of people in India and in the UK say that we want to see the playwrights of yesteryears.
Yes.
So people who wrote for the Pakistan Television Corporation in those days, that is the sort of work Pakistan is appreciated for. And we seem to be straying away from what we're good at to things that we think are selling everywhere else in the world. So it was challenging. I think the financial aspect was the most challenging. The other thing was that I wanted to obviously support young people. All of the core team was under 30, inexperienced, amateur production level, and so the 4 core team, particularly the producer and the director, had never made this sort of commercial product before. So I think that they need a little bit more technical as well as pre-production training. I think that is what we need to focus on, because getting them to write down things and storyboarding and doing things professionally was a challenge. But on the plus side, we've made it with a fresh cast, with a fresh production team, and it's done really well. So that is a big sell.
Yes.
But I'm a perfectionist, so I can see where we've missed a few bits, and I think that we can do a lot better than this.
So do you hope to produce more films in the future for Pakistan?
This was actually, to be quite honest, if what a lot of people don't know about me is for the past 10 years or so, or particularly when I started working at the BBC, I have been mentoring youngsters for whatever they want to do, particularly in the creative media. So if you want to become a journalist, or if you want to start a career that's associated with journalism, for example, a website. If you want to start off as an actor or a producer or a director, I want to be there to give you that foot in the door. Because media, like politics, I suppose, has no structure.
Yes.
So it's not like doing medicine. You can't do 4 years of medical school and then go into some sort of like a house job and then become a doctor. It's a very unstructured route. So youngsters, particularly if they do not happen to live in Karachi, they will never get that opportunity. So the idea was to give youngsters in Islamabad or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, this side, even Lahore, the opportunities have become limited. But that was the point, to start filmmaking and promote creative media from this part of Pakistan. And I think in that respect we've been very successful. So we want to make more films, I want to make more films, and the only obstacle now is finding the time to do that.
Yes.
But we are working on a project, and the first one, Janan, was based on Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Pashtun culture.
Very traditional.
Very traditional. I wanted to show something from Swat which was core to Swati values. I'm Swati by origin, which would not promote anything the way Swat has been projected. So I know a Swat which is very different, and that's what I wanted to deliver to the audiences. This time, a lot of people have complained that you keep talking about Pakhtuns and you forget the rest of us also love you, and I love all Pakistan. So I'm making the second project, hopefully, is going to be focused on Punjabiness. So expect a lot of bhangra.
So jumping straight to politics, what is your take as a journalist on the Panama Leaks case?
I think with the Panama Leaks case, from the point of view of a journalist who was doing a prime time show, it got to a stage where it became tedious and tiresome because there was nothing happening. And I've received a lot of criticism from people to say, well, you don't talk about Panama. But I work on the grassroots with people, and I think that the people they're not engaged with the Panama issue. And the reason they're not engaged with it is A, because we have become numb when it comes to corruption. It's not something new. We all live, breathe in an environment which makes corruption acceptable. So it's not something, it's not something that you've just woken up one morning and thought, Pakistani politicians are corrupt. We know that, we accept it. We shouldn't accept it, but I think that the wider audience isn't engaged with it. I think it is used in a very small political sphere, and I think it's being used particularly for political reasons. Why I say that is because I have a lot of legal a background in legal issues, and I think that it could have, if you wanted to pursue corruption per se, you should have done it with stronger legal grounds. There should have been, perhaps, even a lot of people who work in the legal fraternity here, they don't think that the Supreme Court was the best place, the platform to even put the case forward, because there doesn't seem to be any conclusion to this. And I think people are getting just tired about it. And it came to a point where I thought, I can't be talking about this 7 days a week. I need to be talking about the issues that are far more serious. And I know that corruption is the root cause of everything, but there are so many bigger issues. For me, one of the biggest issues which a lot of politicians and policymakers and those powers that be are not looking at is the fact that if our next generation isn't going to be alive, the fact that we live, 80% of the population lives with contaminated water.
True, yes.
How are you going to talk about education if our children are not going to be alive? And I do understand that it is also a very simple, a cost-effective way, there is a very simple, cheap way of addressing the water crisis in Pakistan. It's not going to cost you a lot of money, which is why it doesn't appeal to people, because there are no kickbacks, there are no commissions, and it's something which will deliver immediate relief.
Yes.
Which is why you will never hear of big policymakers talking about the core issue. If you don't have water, you have nothing. And this is why, to me, in order of preference, water is the first priority. Second comes health, because people are then being deprived of health facilities. This is true for urban centres. The medical negligence cases within the federal capital. Poor people have very poor health or no health facilities. And as far as the villages and the smaller provinces are concerned, it's pathetic. So you have to put things in order. according to priority. And the third most vital issue, of course, after this is the fact that we have no energy. I mean, you're either freezing to death or you're dying because of heat. And that has to be addressed. So why do we not have any energy? We cannot go anywhere further in life if we do not provide energy sources to our growing population. And then on the fourth rung, I think, comes education. Because if you're not watered, fed, healthy, and you have no energy, how are you going to teach the next generation? It's impossible. So you must prioritize. So Panama, for me, I think if we really want to solve this, I want to look at it in a different way. I think you should crack down now, say that there will be no more corruption, and just introduce new laws which are strict and implement them. So say that if you are a position holder or a public office holder, you will not have offshore tax havens. That's what they did in India. I don't understand why we can't do that. Ask for clear accountability. Say you want to get into politics, you want to become a bureaucrat, you want to be part of the judiciary, you are part of the army, show us your tax accounts, show us the accounts, all the dealings that have been happening in the last 10 years. I can do that, and I think even particularly for our primetime anchors, because there's just such a lot of filth being sometimes thrown at them, I think that needs to be done. If you have nothing to hide, we should be able to see that.
True.
So if you ask me, I'd be very happy to publish all my children's accounts, my accounts, every transaction ever done. And so all the accusations that have been thrown at me for the last 2 years or so, I have evidence that they cannot possibly be true. Because everything is traceable, everything is accountable. So why can we not ask of everyone who sits in the parliament? It should be law for everyone who is making any decision which affects Pakistani people. And that should start now. One of the biggest concerns that people like me have is that if Panama doesn't work, which it seems like it's fizzling out in the Supreme Court, then that it sets a precedent for newer candidates or newer politicians to get away with murder, and they do.
True, yes.
So I look at things in a legal perspective, that if this doesn't work, which seems to be failing, then what other recourse will we have? So this is addressing the problem in the wrong way. I think you should be addressing the root cause. You should be making it law that you cannot do any corruption. And it's very easy to do so if you want to.
Yes.
So there doesn't seem to be the cliched political will.
So, according to you, what are some measures that the Pakistan government should take to improve the political situation of the country?
I think the Pakistan government needs to, I think, feed people first, so we need employment. If everyone has employment, then they are likely to use their right to vote fairly and wisely, because the way people think at the moment is that all of the political parties are the same, all the political representatives are the same, so whoever's going to pay them more, they're going to vote there. It makes complete economic sense. They don't really care about democracy because they have to feed their children. But if they have employment, if they're fed, then they will think about who is the best candidate, and at the moment that doesn't happen. So we have the system of whoever has the fattest offering around elections. So I think government could do wonders if they just provided employment. In this 1 year and even after the elections, I think that is what they need to focus on. CPEC, skill providing, and employment with the CPEC.
So I would like to shift my focus to journalism now. How is broadcast journalism different in Pakistan than it is in the UK? Because obviously you've had your experience there. So are we on the right track?
I'm not very popular with the broadcast journalists at the moment, so I think they're going to hate me a bit more, but and I shouldn't really be, but I've never minced my words. Broadcast journalism, the way it's going in Pakistan, is actually deteriorated. So I know that I've had lots of conversations with people who've been around for over 10 years, and I'd love to say that they're going through an electronic boom and that they will learn by making mistakes. I have a very different viewpoint. Broadcast journalism in Pakistan follows no rules, discipline, or even factual reporting. So it has become it's become a platform for primetime anchors to air their views. Very similar to the way they blame the mullahs for doing it in the mosques. There's no difference. at least the mullahs are talking about their faith and their religion. But what you're talking about, using prime time, is perhaps a personal vendetta against a political party or an individual, and that's not acceptable. I mean, if you have to sit at 8 o'clock and blame someone or bully someone or even malign someone, then I have no problem if you have evidence. Show the evidence. You must talk factually. You must use numbers. If you have a claim, then it must be backed with some documentary evidence. And even then, I must say that I'm quite disheartened by the way the way it's going in broadcast journalism in Pakistan, and the people also, the audience have begun to reject it. So they're fed up with all of this biased and very aggressive stance of some of the anchors, and it defames the whole profession. So it defames people who are actually doing an honest job or are working very hard, and I think it's very unfair because they will just, it's like they have no rules left anymore. You can't possibly do that in England. You would have to check your sources and then cross-check your sources. You would check things 3 times. And the BBC particularly have learned from their past mistakes. So we have part of the BBC policy guidelines states very clearly that accuracy over speed. So even if you've made an honest mistake, that's not acceptable. The speed with which things, this craze for breaking news compromises journalism even further. And then in Pakistan, people have a lot of political backing so that they can sit on prime time and say something and get away with it. But once you've said something about someone, you have set the narrative. So if you describe this drink as yellow and it's clearly blue, but you have described it as yellow, I could go blue in the face saying it's blue, but because it's been established as yellow, and that is what's happening in Pakistan. It's looking very yellow at the moment as far as broadcast journalism is concerned.
I also want your take on the US elections. After Donald Trump has won now, how do you see the dynamics of the political situation in the United States?
I think one of the things, before we go on to Donald Trump and what will America look like with him, I think it's perhaps imperative to point out that the way the campaign against Donald Trump was run by media is exactly what's happening in Pakistan. So, you see, we could see that Donald Trump is winning, but the media wouldn't accept it. And they didn't even accept it after the results were out. So that is an indication where the media is so anti an idea that they will not accept what people have voted. Donald Trump has been voted in. Whether you or I like it or not, that's what the American public have said. Like and it might not be the right choice. It could be a brilliant choice, but this is the popular vote. This is what the people have said. He's been elected in. Some of the things which he's said during the campaign as a person have not helped the fact that he doesn't make any effort for people to like him. So even before you discuss what he's going to do politically or in government, the fact that he's made some deeply disturbing remarks about women, about young women, they reek of misogyny, which has no place in today's world. They're unacceptable. It makes a lot of people very angry. So that is negative publicity for him. He really needs to tone down with that, and I think he has. I think since he's been elected, he's actually toned down. And so it could be maybe he's a businessman who knows how to win, and maybe he was just saying what was popular. Because you see, there must be a lot of people who want to hear that as well. There might be a lot of people who are sexist, and he wanted their vote. So maybe he's just used it as a way to get into power. I'm saying this with hope that he's not really like that. But even so, I think it's not very pleasant to hear disturbing remarks. But I think some of it had to do with a lot of media. Basically, there was a witch hunt for him. We have to be honest. The other thing which was considered very disturbing was the fact that he seems to be anti-Muslim and anti-Pakistani, or anti-immigrant, shall we say. But I can understand that in America there is a growing, not only in the US but in the UK as well, there is a growing resentment towards immigrants. And the reason there's growing resentment towards immigrants is not because immigrants become terrorists, but because immigrants take up the jobs or are better qualified or are more hardworking because they're immigrants, and so the local or the indigenous population develops resentment. So I think he needs to, the good thing that I think with Donald Trump for Pakistan, particularly politically, will be the fact that because he's focusing on the US, he's focusing inwards. I think that he will not be blamed as previous regimes have been for poking their noses in other people's affairs. And so we might see, I hope, a drop in proxy wars. We might see less interference in places like Syria, which the US has been directly involved with. Nobody seems to be talking about it. Yemen and Pakistan. So we've seen things, transpire with the Arab Spring. What's happened to Libya? I was born in Libya. Look at the country, the state that it's in. Nobody talks about it. So with Donald Trump, the advantage that I see is that I think because he'll be focusing inwards, the rest of the world can get their act together. You will not have that excuse that America's interfering. So that's a positive thing. The other thing, which I think is very positive, is the fact that this anti-Russian, you could look at it in different ways. I know that they're talking about sort of Russia influencing the elections, but you could look at it in a different way. I'm looking at things from a Pakistani point of view, and I think that the fact that Donald Trump has a better relationship with Russia would only be good for us, because we've been used as a proxy weapon between Russia and the US for a very long time. So if Russia and US get on, simplistically put, I think it could not be bad for Pakistan. Also, the fact that he's rebuilding with China is a good idea, because with the China-Pak economic corridor, this means stability for us. So if the US and Russia and China are all getting along, chances are, hopefully, fingers crossed, and you never know what the real story is, but on the surface it looks like there will be less trouble in Pakistan.
I see.
Because we can't afford any more trouble.
So what are some humanitarian causes you're involved in Pakistan?
You see, humanitarian causes, I've been involved with children's education and child protection since I've been in Pakistan, and actually this is what I've been doing all my life. So this is what I was doing even in the UK before I came here.
It's incredibly important.
Because you see, it's like for me it's very simple. The youth is our biggest asset. We are the rest of the world is an aging world. We have only fertility, which we can boast about. So we need to look after that. We have a younger population than the rest of the world. If that younger population goes towards crime or terrorism or extremism, I do not need to spell out what it means for us. If that younger population is well fed, because all our children are undernourished, even those in well-off families are suffering from a lot of health issues. So we need to focus on them. I do child protection for children who have no one, and because it's the core view or concept introduced by Islam, which is kafala, and so it is part of our faith, it's part of our culture as well, to look after the destitute and the underprivileged. So the most underprivileged are those that you see on the streets. They should be looked after and protected first. Then children who have been orphaned, children who are in child labor. All of this issue around taiba, they seem to miss the point that whether taiba has been abused by a gentleman or a lady or someone from outside the house, the fact remains that an underage child was working in a household that is seen to be educated. So you would not see that happening in my house. There will never be an under 18 working in my house. And there have been instances where I've been served by children in other people's homes and I've left, because to me that's unacceptable and it's illegal. So someone who is, so it's very simple. You have to protect the children. Reham Khan Foundation has introduced an initiative, and we have a lot of youth engaged with it, which is called Mashoom, which is Pashto for Child, and we are protecting the most vulnerable children in society. And we are focusing on younger children first, but we are staying with them until they're about 14, 16, so that they get into employment. A lot of people also say to me that you want to eliminate street children and child labor, so what about economy and their economic problems? No, it's not like that. I don't want to pick them up and put them in maths classes immediately. That's not possible. I want to give them an economic source, and that is only possible if you improve the skills that they have. The only problem I have is that if a child is working in a car mechanics workshop, or if the child is working in an industry, or the child is begging on the streets, that child is more likely, and is the case, to abuse, physical, sexual, psychological, and that I want to protect. So I want to bring that child, give them an economic source, make them stars. I mean, I would love to, what I'm focusing on are professional sports, particularly football, and skills that they might already have. So I'm not saying that I'm going to put them through schooling and forcing them to be educated. I'm trying to give them a better life, and we've had a very good response. This is a complete myth that parents do not want their children to be educated. This is also a complete myth that Pakistani parents do not want their girls to be educated. But every parent wants a safe environment for their child, girl or boy. So you have to understand our cultural sensitivities. If a Pashtun family feels that their girl child is not going to be safe in a school, I can completely understand their reservations. So you have to ensure that you stay within cultural boundaries and then give them a better future. So I think these are just excuses people use because they do not want to make a difference or change the way things are.
So do you think freedom of speech exists in Pakistan, or are we as Pakistanis restricting other people's right, constitutional right to exercise to its fullest potential, or do you think somewhere between the lines we are not really abiding by the constitutional right?
Freedom of speech in Pakistan to a greater degree, but it's true everywhere in the world, not so extreme as it is in Pakistan. Freedom of speech exists in Pakistan only if you have someone to protect you. So if you have a backing, you can say anything about anyone. You can talk about religion if you are sure that you're not going to be attacked for blasphemy. You can talk about women if you're sure that you will not be attacked for it. You can talk about people, you can call them whatever you want, as long as you have someone who is backing you. And that is the biggest, I suppose, disparity in Pakistan. So the freedom of speech for those who can afford to have that freedom. It's not for everyone. And I think people need to be very careful about that. So you need to check whether you have the liberty to speak. One of the biggest crises in Pakistan is that being a Pakistani or being a Muslim, you cannot talk about your own faith, you can't talk about your own nationality if you do not have the backing. And so I feel that this is the biggest violation of a basic right. Elsewhere in the world, it also exists, that you have more freedom than others if you have a lobby. So if I write an article, I need, and it's an article that uses very harsh language or criticizes the political forces or criticizes a particular business lobby harshly, I need someone to back me. I need someone to publish that for me. Just a good article isn't going to warrant it being published. I need to have those connections. Equally, other people could have better connections than mine and pull that article or change the words in the interview. And this is a fact. This is something that happens across the world. In Pakistan, it happens a little bit more blatantly. And that's a shame.
Towards the end, last two questions. What's the hardest part about being a journalist?
Do you know, this is a difficult question for me because I have a lot of friends who think that I have a dreadful life. And so one of my closest friends, I've grown up with her, and so one day I was covering one of these protests, and so she said to me, she was trying to sort of, pamper me, and I was missing breakfast, and I was out all day in very harsh conditions, and she was like, oh my God, you have such a difficult life. But to me, her life is difficult. And so to me, it's not difficult. If something that you like and you're passionate about, then there's no difficulty. You do not actually feel any fear. You do not think that, oh, I'm not going to go there because it's dangerous, or I'm not going to do that because it's tiring. It's because the adrenaline rush, and you're so focused and so passionate. So those people who, a lot of people write to me, a lot of youngsters write to me and they say, I want to become an anchor. And I say, don't. That's the best advice I can give you. Don't come into this profession if you want to become an anchor. Do it because you actually like meeting people, or you like being out there on the road. You might be just doing something on television, on screen for an hour, maybe even 2 minutes for a package. But there's a lot of work, a lot of sweat that goes into it before that. So it's not glamorous at all. It's hard work. There's a lot of reading. And now we live in this so-called globalization, Now you have to know what the US elections are doing, then you need to know what's happening in Pakistan. So imagine that you need to read everything that's published in Pakistan, and then you have to be awake for the American editions all night. So it's difficult if you do not enjoy it. For me, nothing is difficult in journalism because, like you said, that for me, journalism is not about appearing on TV. Journalism is about finding the story, finding the source behind the story. It doesn't even matter to me whether it's published or not. So it's a little bit of your record of how you see things because it's a part of history, and you need to be really living and breathing it. So the hardest part is the fact that you can't have a life. You have to have very understanding family members or friends. You will miss birthdays, you will miss weddings, you will be labeled the ditcher, and you have to be happy to do that. So I'm very lucky that my children, who are my core family, are very supportive, and I've been pretty sneaky because now my children are involved in my profession, so they're involved as well. So they're as committed to this. That's one thing, but certainly you can't have a normal life.
Towards the end, I would like to ask, what's the one thing that you would like to change about Pakistan and why?
For Pakistan, I think that the thing that upsets me most is the dishonesty. So I think that people need to just learn, try to be a little bit more honest. And I know it's hard because I think that people have become used to lying so frequently, so liberally, and so that hurts. And I understand that there are people who are paid to lie, and people who are very good at lying, and people who lie about lying, but I just want that not to become routine.
The norm.
Yes, it's become the norm. So I understand that politicians lie, and I understand that people in position lie, and I understand that household staff lie, but I think that there's no need to lie, and it has become a national trait, and I find it embarrassing because I've discovered this in the last 4 years that I've been in Pakistan, because I think we have so many good traits that are overlooked or basically overshadowed by the fact that we lie. So even when you sit with overseas Pakistanis, or particularly that other nations also know this about us, and that really hurts, because when other people view us as liars or not as trustworthy people who do not keep their word, that's a reputation that we've built around the world. And that hurts because it's embarrassing, it's humiliating. So I want the youth, and please practice it even in little things. So it could be something which you think is a harmless lie, like you say to your buddy that I'm going to be there in 2 minutes, but you're not. You're still in bed. So develop that habit. Every single time you begin to lie, a small innocent lie, don't. Be honest with the people that you work with. Be honest with your families. Be honest with. I think there's a lot to be. I have suffered because of being honest in life, and a lot of my family and my staff and my interns, they're sort of constantly telling me not to be so honest, and I cause a lot of problems for them because they then have to be tactful and diplomatic. But I really think that I haven't suffered because of that. At least I have a clear conscience, and I'm not. I'm answerable to myself and to my faith. So I know that I've been honest, and that's fine. So practice that. Try practicing that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Reham Khan, for being here. Thank you so much. It was an immense pleasure to be here with Reham Khan. For more videos, stay tuned on my official YouTube channel and official Facebook page. Until then, take care. Allah.